3, 2, 1.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off.
Blast off on another episode of Hero Paranormal Podcast. My name is Ryan, the original outlaw of the airwaves, bringing you a live and direct episode VIP for you and you only. And if you're a patron, well, you're getting a lot more. You're getting video intros, you're getting extra content, and you're getting stuff that's disabled if you're not. So, without further ado, we're going to call Nathan Arizona, who is our guest today. We're going to just get into it. We're not pitching anything, because this guy's awesome. And we are just going to discuss all the things that we need to discuss, which last time I checked, there was a lot of them. So here we go. Nathan is a great guy. Nathan Arizona, welcome to the Hero Paranormal Podcast, my man.
How's it going?
You know, I can't complain. It's snowing in Vegas. And from a global warming standpoint, that's like super good news, I guess. But it is cold and that sucks, so I can't really go out and do anything. But I was super excited because, hey, I'm inside talking to you, and I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. The last time I saw you, there was like 200 people around us. They all wanted to talk to you, and you still made time to talk to me, and I appreciate that. I wanted to delve into all kinds of stuff, but why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? And a question I ask all my guests is, who is Nathan Arizona?
Well, I'm a professional guide. I do tours around the American Southwest, like a normal tour guide would. I started out as a wilderness tour guide on the Arizona Strip, just north of the Grand Canyon on the Arizona Strip. It was one of the most isolated places in the lower 48 states, and National Geographic called it the bed of the Americas. So most of my 17 years of my career has been as a professional interpretive guide, doing tours around the Southwest. So my interest in UFOs kind of took off when I witnessed my first major sighting in 2013 and had two more sightings after that between 2013 and 2016. And I think that's kind of what set everything into motion for a festival that we formed up in southern Utah, which you've also been a supporter and a backer of. And so I've been kind of walking that walk just kind of after experiencing that first sighting firsthand. It kind of causes you to begin a journey down the rabbit hole, which is not your typical reality in this field. So, you're trying to make sense of something that's constantly exploited, for the mighty dollar and for a profit. It makes you question the actual niche of the phenomenon. I don't question the phenomenon at all. I believe it's real based on what I've experienced, and we can't scientifically, find a whole lot of evidence supporting it, but we know that something's going on, and that's why we even talk about it. So that's where I'm at right now. I do occasional Area 51 tours. I'm getting ready to take a film crew mid-April out to a German film crew out to Rachel and Area 51 area. And that's going to be kind of difficult with the COVID-19 restrictions currently in place in Nevada right now. So I'm hoping they lift those, but that's going to be an interesting experience. It's the first tour I've been able to conduct since the beginning of the pandemic. So it might be the light at the end of the tunnel, but maybe there's a train coming. That's what that light is. Who knows?
I couldn't agree more. Nevada, it's so weird. It seems like we just do whatever California does, but we wait a couple weeks. And but I'm no specialist in politics, so my whole thing just comes from, it'd be cool to see that, and I can't wait. And your tours are awesome. In the intro, I kind of explained how you have the people you have there. Travis Walton goes every year. it's really quite phenomenal. And I think that it will be back soon, mask or mask not. Somehow, I think you're going to make it happen, or like we discussed, maybe you'll make something happen in both places, Arizona and in Utah.
I don't think with as far as events and stuff like that going, I think we're going to probably end up shooting for 2022 because I've talked to Connie. She's a friend of mine who is one of the owners of the Little A-Lee Inn out in Rachel. And, I really went to her for some advice on what we should do. And she basically said the legal liabilities associated with COVID would make our insurance policy for an event go clear through the roof. So we probably won't, unfortunately, because of cost and economics. I think the pandemic's going to prevent us from being able to do an event this year. So we're kind of, it's still up in the air right now. We don't know what we're doing yet, but I think it's safe to say that people should assume that nothing may happen this summer. Honestly, until we're completely out of the woods, we just have to play it safe. So.
And out of the woods is a good way to put it, because you just don't know what's happening. I mean, you obviously have a lot better pulse on it than I do, and I appreciate that. So kind of getting into something I want to discuss with you, and something you discussed at the last time I saw you at the Utah UFO Fest, was some amazing history of your own family and really your Mormon roots and UFOs in Utah.
Okay. You just got to tell me where to start, because
it's so hard. It's so hard. I know your grandpa was very special to you, so I want to start there, but I know that the story starts well before that.
For my experiences with UFOs,
like
grandpa,
UFOs, like UFOs and your grandpa, and possible connections to his Mormon roots.
Yeah, I don't exactly remember what I was talking about at the festivals. If you have any specific questions, let me know, because I covered a lot of topics at the last.
You did. It was awesome discussion. Let's go with your grandpa and kind of go from there, because that's kind of where my gut tells me to start, and I think that's the place to start.
Okay, my grandpa he spent his life out in the hills. He was going down mine shafts when he was a kid. He was sneaking out of his house in the middle of the night. Going out and, venturing out. He ran a mining company up in Utah. We had about 300 mining claims around the state. He had a gold mine that he established down by St. George called Gold Strike, and everyone thought he was crazy because he claimed that he discovered gold in these old Spanish diggings that were like 16th century Spanish diggings. When you hear people talk like that today, you think, oh yeah, they're quacky, right? They're like, nah, I doubt you. That's wishful thinking. And everyone in St. George, Utah, thought he was crazy because he was telling people that he had found gold in these old Spanish diggings. And he spent the next 15 years prospecting the area. And he finally actually had the samples assayed, and it turned out there was gold in the ore. And he couldn't afford to develop the claims, so he I guess put out some kind of inquiry out to public mining companies, and one of them stepped up to the plate. I think it was Tenneco, and they ended up open pitting that mine and producing well over $200 million in gold ore out of the Gold Strike. So it's called the Gold Strike Mining District down by St. George. And I think a lot of people probably didn't, my grandpa was very soft-spoken. He was kind of introverted in a lot of ways. He wasn't afraid to get in front of groups of people and talk to them, but I think he was kind of conservative when it came to sharing some of his deeper feelings. But he always had kind of like the soft spot for UFOs. The whole time I've been growing up, it was always a topic of interest that would get him to open up, especially when we were traveling out to the mines or the quarries. That was kind of my grandpa's rock slave, right? He didn't like to hire people from the outside because some of our operations were sensitive, and he was afraid of people going into the mines and stealing the rock. And it's like we would have these conversations on ufology from when I was a kid before I even knew what a UFO was. So it's like he had dreams where, like, one of his dreams was he saw the design of how these craft were engineered. and he actually woke up from that dream and drew an outline of the technology that he had remembered from his dream that told him basically how these craft would operate and how they were like anti-gravitational vehicles. Now, I don't know how serious to take that, but my grandpa was kind of an interesting character, and after he passed away, my brother and I, he was he liked to occasionally grow his beard really long and white, and he kind of looked like one of those guys on Duck Dynasty, Phil Robertson or whatever. And so we made a spin off of his beard, took a picture of that, designed a graphic out of it, and we called it our little clan the UFO Dynasty, right? Just because we've always been kind of like, this side of my family has always been kind of intuitive. We've got this thing that we call the Lamoureux intuition, which is my grandfather's last name, Lamoureux. And we've always kind of had not his entire family is like this, but there's definitely a strong streak of relatives of mine that have, in some way or another, been affected by this phenomenon. So there's just a natural interest there, and there were stories before mine that existed in our family that made me kind of help me connect the dots. And then I saw these objects in 2013. And I actually videotaped some of them. I was able to get some videotape. I had two other experiences between 2013 and 2016, which put me further down the rabbit hole. And over the years since then, I began having some sort of recall, or what you could suggest as a flashback, where all of a sudden I'm beginning to have memories. I have a memory of my childhood at a preschool up in Salt Lake City, where I remember seeing, this was a flashback, I was like in a semi-sleep pattern, right? And I saw these objects outside of the preschool window, and all our daycare workers and the caretakers there, the preschool, were motioning all the kids to come over to the window, and we saw these craft, and I remember having this memory. This was just like 2 years ago, and I woke up from this dream, this flashback, and I was recalling the name of the preschool. I was thinking it was easy, but I started talking to my brother, and he says, "Nate, I know which preschool that was. Mom would send us to when we were little kids." So I was like 4 years old when I was at this preschool, and my mother was single at the time, and she was leaving us there, and it turned out to stand for ECEC. I don't know what all the acronyms stand for, but it was at the University of Utah, and it was the Early Childhood Development Center at the University of Utah, where my mother was leaving us. So I was like, what am I doing with the memory, a childhood memory that is recalled through a dream or a sleep, where it's just like recalled from memory, and I'm waking up from this and I'm seeing UFOs from my childhood? It's like, I'm wondering if this, you're connecting the dots when you're dealing with this phenomenon. I tend to think that people that are affected by it, to see these objects, are not just seeing them randomly or by happenstance because they happen to, they weren't expecting it, they just show up. I think people that see these objects, there's got to be some kind of phenomenon tied to their past, or there's something going on there. And I don't have any scientific evidence, of course, except the videos I captured out in Nevada. I don't really have any scientific evidence to prove anything that I'm saying here, or to back anything I'm claiming here. And I'll be the first to admit that. It's like, I'm scientifically objective. I don't believe a lot of what I hear about, because there are a lot of charlatans and there's a lot of paranoids and tinfoil hatters out there, And I go to conferences and I see that people like to, pull out the crystals and the chakras, and they like to start talking about all the new ageism that's around this phenomenon, and they kind of lose me at that point, because like, okay, this is where science left the building and religion has taken over religious beliefs. And I honestly believe that there's a phenomenon. I believe it's real. I don't know exactly what we're dealing with. I've had experiences that I can't explain that have happened. I just told you a few of those experiences while connecting the dots, or trying to connect the dots here. But whatever this phenomenon is, it's not. It doesn't follow a chronological linear path like our society does, like you and I do. We look at a watch, and we meet at 11 o'clock today to have this podcast, and we're on a linear chronological path. But I think if I'm thinking of a Hollywood movie to compare this to, I would have to say it's comparable to that film that came out a couple of years ago called Arrival, which talked about linguistics and talked about alien, non-human languages, and how maybe not all intelligences behave on a linear path, on a chronological linear path. Maybe they're interdimensional, maybe they're ETs from outer space. But I thought that movie put out a really good message because it kind of is comparable to what I think this phenomenon is, especially when it comes to recall or memories coming back to haunt you because something triggered those memories, maybe like a post-traumatic stress episode. I don't really know how to describe it, but that's kind of what it came across to me when I've been trying to figure out what it is I'm dealing with, and then I all of a sudden remember an early childhood memory like that. It's like, are they invented memories? Are they suggestive? Is it something that came from the figment of my imagination? I don't know. I think it's real because of the, being able to recall certain locations and certain times of the year from that memory. It's really hard for me to refute that was just some kind of invented memory or implanted memory.
I'm sure it's not implanted, invented, or any kind of artificial memory. It sounds to me like these things have an overlay, and it oftentimes people that, like you said, genetically that this goes through their family line. There's a lot of situations and circumstances where, the kids are going off to places like this for special kids that have extra perceived value to the school system. And I remember being that name hits a bell with me as well. And I remember, elementary school. Do you remember going to like a place where they did a banquet for you or anything like that?
No, but this is I honestly,
we probably shouldn't go down this rabbit hole. Sorry.
I honestly,
yeah.
I remember when I had this memory, when I had this recall, where this memory came back to me. The memory seemed like I had the memory 1,000 times before, and it seemed so familiar to me. But
was there a lot of color red in it? Lots of color red in it at all, by any chance?
It was. Well, when these objects when we were seeing these objects, they were in the sky, they were outside the building, and it was evening, and it was sunset, and I just remember all the commotion of being invited amongst all the other school kids there, and we all saw these objects, and I don't have any other memory of this specific event except that one. It seems like flashbacks. It's not like a total memory. It's almost like scenes, just short clips and scenes of a very far distant memory that seems so familiar, but I don't remember remembering it the whole time since my childhood. It was almost like a recall that was just happened, but it seems so familiar because I remember remembering it again somewhere else in another time frame, in another part of my life. I don't know. It was just, and I thought 2013 was the first time of seeing these objects, but the real thing for me is I have when I'm looking at this stuff scientifically and objectively, I have to be completely honest with people. When I saw the objects out in Nevada, they looked like orange spheres about the size of a house. And they were completely muffled. It wasn't a brightness. It was so bright that it would hurt your eyes. It was like think of a soft orange light, and the further away it got, the brighter it got. So it was like when it was like across the valley. I saw these objects out in where Groom Lake Road is, going out to the front entrance of Area 51. And if you go on YouTube and look up orange orbs and my name, you'll see 2 videos on YouTube that don't do justice to what I actually saw with my naked eyes. I wasn't intending to capture video, But there's a deeper story tied to this. I had a dream, almost like a vision in Cedar City that morning, and I don't talk about that because when people are already skeptical, telling people I was prompted to go out there was a message for me to go out there, that's where it gets really far-fetched for a lot of people, and they begin to have a hard time believing what I'm saying with no evidence. But, I was actually supposed to go down. I don't usually share this part of the story. I just feel intuitive to share it with you, Ryan, who's a good friend of mine. But
so cool. Thanks.
I just tell people I saw orange orbs, but we were actually supposed to go to Page, Arizona that morning because my friend Nathan, his name's Nathan too. I won't mention his last name just for his privacy, just in case he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to, be he is a second primary witness, but he doesn't seem like someone who would want to go on the record, but maybe he would. But he was out there with me, and he was supposed to be learning photography from me. I was actually training him on photography. He wanted to be my apprentice, and so he was following me around with the camera, and our intention was to go down to Page, Arizona and photograph Big Ben in the Grand Canyon, and that was our original goal. But I had this weird dream where I was on a craft in the dream, and I actually ended up sleepwalking that morning out of the house, and it was blizzarding outside that morning, and my roommate was up late that night, and he watched me walk out of the house and walk out into a blizzard, into a snowstorm, while I was having this dream. And he woke me up, and I was out in the street, underneath the street lamp, in snow, and I remember waking up from this dream, and in the dream, I was in this spaceship, I was in this large craft, and I was getting off this metal table in this craft, and I could hear the roar of the engine. There was a roar of a large engine inside of this vessel, and I remember getting off the table and walking down a hallway inside this craft, and while I was walking through this craft, this is when I was sleepwalking out of the house, and my roommate Skylar came and woke me up because he was a little spooked because he saw me walk out of the house with, no shoes on and no jacket or anything out in the snow, so he came and got me, and I woke up while I was sleepwalking, and the sound of that craft was still loud. It was still ringing in my ears after waking up, and the amplified sound of that engine or whatever it was on that craft began to die down, and it died down to the hum of I-15 going through Cedar City. So the constant hum of the freeway seemed to be in sync with whatever the sound was from this vision I had. And right then when I woke up, it was almost like I had the urge. I had the message that had come through to me. It said, go to Area 51. Now, I've been going out there since I was 8 years old, okay? First time I went out there, I was 8 years old, and I've been going out there all these years, never seen anything. But the message was clear, that we were going to see something. And I was supposed to tell my buddy, he's not a big fan of Area 51. Nate, this other Nate, he didn't really want to go out there. I had to make a case to go out there, and I urged him to go out there that morning. And we changed course, and we ended up going out to Area 51. So we get out to Area 51, and on our way out there, I say, let's stop at the old ghost town of Delamar. Now, if you look this up on a map, the ghost town of Delamar, it's quite a ways from Area 51. It's about 30 or 40 miles east of Area 51. So we're on our way out to Area 51. We're going to go stop at Rachel. We're going to go to the back entrances, of course, do everything I do when I usually go out there. And I had this feeling, this premonition going on the entire time that we were going to see something. And I told Nate, I said, I don't know what to tell you. I just know I have this certainty. And whenever this certainty hits me like this, and it's been inspired like this, or something I can't explain like this, I have to trust this because something's going to happen. I knew for a fact it was going to happen. And we go out to this ghost town, and it's about a 7-mile dirt road trip out to the ghost town of Delamar. You have to have four-wheel drive to get up in there. And we're talking about 30 or 40 miles away from the base here, okay? And we get out there to these ruins of this old ghost town of Delamar up on the side of this mountain, like I said, quite a ways from the base. And while we're out there photographing the landscapes and all the old West Western ruins out there from the 19th century, drones show up, military drones. The kind that you hear about Obama was using for drone strikes to kill enemies of the United States, right? Like, the drone kills. Those kind of drones with the front heavy ends on them, right? They have like these really heavy cockpits. I don't know if they had someone on board or if they were unmanned or remote controlled, but these drones show up over the top of Delamar, 40 miles away from the base, and I pull out my phone, and he pulls out his phone, and we begin filming these. And I've got this footage somewhere. I got to find it. It's on a backup hard drive. But 2 or 3 of these drones show up, and the whole 30 or 40 minutes we were out there, they didn't leave. They just circled around the top of us, and I'm thinking, that's like the strangest thing. Those have to be expensive to fly around out there. So what are they doing flying over the top of a couple random college students photographing landscapes on their way out to Area 51? It's like, I thought that was the weirdest thing. So at first I thought maybe this is what I was supposed to see or something. And it's like, it seemed underwhelming because I knew what they were, right? It's like, that's not what I was expecting. And this is in the middle of the winter. We're talking December of 2013. And we go out to the alien before it gets too dark. We grab the burger. We eat the food. And we go out to the back entrance, to the gates, the ones that are in the same valley where Rachel, Nevada is, right? There's a back entrance there. And I remember saying something to the camera, the security cameras out there at the back entrance, and I said, I know the truth. I know what you guys are hiding in there. I always take groups out there, and I'll talk to the base, and I'll talk to the security cameras, and it's like, it's just me being funny, okay? But that night, we were getting ready to head back. We left the little alien, we ate dinner at the little alien, and then we were heading back to Utah, and the moon was coming up, and it was probably around, I don't know what time it was, but it was like right at twilight. We had left Rachel. We were in that adjacent valley. I think it's Teekaboo Valley, right? The one where Groom Lake Road is. We're driving down that road, and all of a suddenly, these 4 massive orbs come out from behind the mountain. The mountain as you're heading towards Caliente. There's a mountain range there. And 4 of these big orbs came out from behind the mountain, and they maneuvered down into the valley. So they went over the mountain and down into the valley, and they were right above the valley floor on the north side of Extraterrestrial Highway. And I was training Nate with photography, so I left, but the sad thing is I had left all my photography gear home. So I had one camera, and I had a wide-angle lens that I was using. So if you're trying to capture something 12 miles away, a wide-angle lens is not going to help you very much capture something up close. I didn't have a telephoto lens. It was just the one lens, one camera combo. When these objects appeared, I just automatically, like muscle memory, grabbed the camera, and I was trying to capture these orbs while they were above the valley floor. And it's almost like right when I got the camera to turn on and I got it to aim into focus, it's almost like the orbs could sense that I was getting ready to try and film them. And they completely blinked out right when I got the camera rolling. So we're talking maybe 45 seconds that we were witnessing these things in between the time I was trying to pull the camera out of the case while driving at the same time on ET Highway. And I had pulled over by then in my Jeep, and I was completely flabbergasted, but I was also completely disappointed because all of a sudden the objects I was trying to record were gone. This was the experience. This was the premonition happening. And we sat there for about 20 minutes just disappointed after they disappeared, and we were just in complete awe of what we had seen. And at this time, the moon was coming up. It was just getting ready to come up over the edge of the horizon. So this wasn't quite dark yet. It was like evening dark, right, when these first appeared. And we were disappointed, and I didn't know what to do because we were heading home. And when we didn't think they were going to show up again, we got back on the highway, and we were just talking about it, and we started heading towards Caliente again, towards Alamo and in that direction. And about 5 minutes later, Well, I was driving down the highway on the opposite end of the valley. I'm looking in the rearview mirror, and it's like they appeared in my rearview mirror on the opposite end of the valley. So I saw them in the rearview mirror, and I turned around, and I didn't even think about whether I should follow them or not. I just started speeding as fast as my Jeep would go. I had the pedal to the metal, and I had flipped that Yui, and I was just punching it back towards Rachel, trying to catch up to these objects while I was also trying to capture the video footage. So for the next 45 minutes, I was trying to capture video footage, trying to catch up to these things, and it's almost like we were playing tag with these lights. We would travel about 5 miles, and then they would blink out and then appear on opposite ends of the valley where we had just come from. So something was toying with us out at Area 51. These objects would disappear and then reappear, and they would never let me get close enough to them to capture footage. Finally, I managed to capture footage. Nate, the other witness in the vehicle, told me to cut the engine because he wanted to see if he could hear these craft making noise. So we cut the engine while I was capturing footage, and that's where I actually got the footage. I made 2 different videos, but you have to look at the videos on an enlarged screen at full resolution, and you can see one of the lights come apart and separate. But they were disappearing and reappearing. I remember getting out of the vehicle, we couldn't hear nothing. There was no noise. When these things were appearing, it was absolutely quiet. We didn't hear any aircraft. We didn't see anyone else coming down the highway that night. And I got out of the vehicle, and this is where my scientific side has to come in and state for the record what something else that I saw that may suggest these weren't UFOs at all. These may have been some kind of holographic image. So I get out of the vehicle, and I'm looking back towards Groom Lake Road, where you find the front entrance to Area 51. You're looking in the mountains back there, right behind the base, where the base is at, right? And there was something that looked like it was projecting an image on a track, and there was this faint light moving back and forth along the ridge line of the mountain, and it almost looked like a projector that was projecting these lights or projecting this hologram that we were witnessing in the sky. I'm thinking it was a hologram. I don't even know if it was orbs or a UFO, but the funny thing is the whole orange orb flare argument works really well to create a sense of deniability for whatever it is when it comes to the orange orb phenomenon, right? They can always just chalk it up as flares, especially at Area 51. So, I don't know. The thing that's inexplicable to me about this experience, about what's going on out there, about what I saw, is the timing and the dream. And, I don't want to suggest this, okay, but I'm going to suggest it with no evidence, except what I saw out there. I believe, and I'm not paranoid, I think there's black hats and there's white hats in the government, okay? I'm not paranoid of the government. I'm not a tinfoil hatter here. But I'm thinking that they have technologies that we can't even begin to comprehend. And they like that there's a few of us are lab rats or something, and they're toying with us. This to me doesn't even seem like an ET. This seems like something where they wanted to test something and they knew I would come out there if they did it. Because I follow this stuff like a cat chases a laser on the wall.
I like that, like a cat chases laser. And so cool. I've seen stuff out at Area 51 too that seems as if it could not be our technology. But again, I am no fleet specialist of these vehicles, so how the heck would I know? And I want to, it's ironic, but perhaps a question I wanted to ask you, an epitome of sort of kind of ties into Area 51 and how compartmentalized it is. A lot of religions are compartmentalized as well, and a lot of the structures and temples of those religions are structured very compartmentalized. In Utah, I've heard a lot of really cool stories about things like an elevator shaft was created in the temple before they knew they even needed an elevator shaft and the dimensions were correct. And other very significant, I guess it would be building processes that they kind of allowed for the electrical, the plumbing, the things that they weren't sure were even going to be in there. And I wanted to kind of delve into that. And you being a native Utahn, did you hear any folklore like that?
Well, I think I have, but I've also traveled extensively throughout the Pueblos and throughout many different indigenous communities around the Southwest. So I see a pattern not just in the Mormon bubble up there in Utah, but I also see it around the American Southwest. I notice inconsistencies in data because I guess I'm educated, right? When you're in college, when you're at a university, you learn how to write bibliographies and you learn how to cite your sources when you're writing research papers, and you come down, you learn research methods like what they call quantitative data research methods, where you're looking at stuff statistically, like quantitative data, and then you're looking at qualitative data when it's not statistical data, like hard science, right? So when you're trying to gather data that's got truth to it, but there's a lot of fluff, you have to sift through a lot of what they call qualitative data. And at the university level, when you're writing a research paper, there's got to be qualitative data will not, something like Wikipedia won't do the trick. You have to have solid sources. You can't use Fox News. You can't use CNN. You can't use these questionable sources. You have to go through a periodical index of approved media sources that are known to be reliable. I would say Associated Press, Reuters, those are qualitative data sources that would be suitable for like a college research paper, right? Mm-hmm. And I learned how to scrutinize bullshit. Oh, probably shouldn't say that on the podcast. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I've learned how to scrutinize a lot of fluff based on those research methods. So I discriminate what I hear, and what I would call what a lot of people will call ufology or ufological data, I call folklore, because there's nothing to prove it. So when we're looking at like Steven Spielberg's film, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, a lot of the inspiration behind that film was derived from the Serpo Project, which is there's a ton of UFO folklore tied to that. And when I'm doing my tours around the Southwest, I like to talk about that. I like to dive down that rabbit hole because it fascinates me, but I call it folklore. And a lot of UFO researchers get offended at me for calling it folklore because it's like, no, there's some truth to this. Of course, but it's like religion and God. You can't prove or disprove it. So it's like, it is what it is, right? And I look at Mormonism, and our organization, we don't look at this from a scientific perspective. Actually, we look at it from a sociological, anthropological perspective when we were hosting the fest. So the whole idea was, the whole question I had when it came to the Mormon church and the Mormon bubble is, what is it that they're trying to make us afraid of? What are they trying to conform us away from? Looking at the pandemic, the church is in lockstep sync with the U.S. federal government when it comes to following the guidelines and shutting down their religious meetings. And I'm not just looking at the church here. I'm not just looking at the Mormon church here. I'm looking at all the major religions and how they're like almost like lockstep in sync with a government or even a world government agenda. And I can't help but think, it's like they're almost like stressing us to conform and not go against the grain and just listen to our leaders. And to me, I've always been kind of skeptical of the church. I'm not active in the church. I'm LDS, and I have to be careful what I say because I don't want to be perceived as someone who's against the church. I identify as a Mormon culturally, and they don't even want to be called Mormons anymore. The official narrative of the church is, no, we're Latter-day Saints. We're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Don't call us Mormons. That's not our thing anymore. We want to reinvent ourselves. We want to reinvent our church's image in the world. You've probably heard a few things about that, right? I've gone against the grain on that. I said, you know what? I'm a proud Mormon. I'm a Mormon and I believe in UFOs. I'm a Mormon and I believe in aliens. I'm a Mormon and I believe God is an extraterrestrial. And some Mormons, when you're sitting in a church meeting, they get offended at that. But that's what their doctrine teaches. It's like, why are you guys getting offended at that? The Mormon church is a UFO cult. Now, don't say that in a church because that's gonna be perceived as sacrilegious. But they talk about God coming from a planet. They don't know if it's a planet or a star. They call it Kolob, right?
Yeah,
and God supposedly, in Mormon theology, God supposedly created this earth, and we're his sons and daughters. And if he created this earth, but he's not from here, what does that make him, Ryan?
Well, he's not here on the terrestrial plane.
Of course. So what does that make him?
A cosmic divine being.
An ET.
I just couldn't say it. I had to have you say it instead. But yes, something not from here. Absolutely. An alien.
Yeah, but the Mormon theology teaches, okay? Their gospel teaches that this one God, our Father in heaven, created worlds without number. They say that he created as many worlds as there are sands upon this earth, grains of sand with intelligent human life. He's not talking about giants and little green people. He's saying human life. And what blows my mind in ufology with stories like Billy Meyer, I know a lot of people are skeptical of Billy Meyer and all these other accounts, but if you look at Adam Adamski, you know who I'm talking about? The Adamski scenario in California, or what's his name? George Van Tassel with the Integratron?
The Integratron, absolutely.
He described
funny fact, do you know Ryan Skinner's significant other is related to George Van Tassel? Yeah.
I didn't know.
It's funny, these circles get smaller and smaller as you start, like much like the Integratron, but go on, yeah. Amazing stuff.
But, so, I think one thing, I have this rebel streak that won't quit. And I get really controversial sometimes to the point that I've burned bridges with people who I grew up with, just because it's like I refuse to allow someone to tell me what I can and can't believe. I refuse to allow someone to tell me what to do. So I think I embrace my Mormon heritage. I embrace my Mormon culture because that's all I know. I wasn't raised Navajo in the Navajo culture with brown skin. I'm a white Anglo B. Lagana, what they call us white folks, the Navajo, and I know a lot about these cultures, but I pretend like I don't because I believe in having a humble heart, where it's like the more I learn, the less I know. Maintain that attitude wherever I go.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome, man. Let me write that one down.
Well, you got it recorded, so you can definitely write it down. But anyways, I think it's kind of crazy that the church owns or had a major stake in Ancestry.com. I wouldn't be surprised if the church is aware of alien technology. I find it really ironic that the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, and the Defense Intelligence Agency, and all these agencies that are not elected, they're unconstitutional. We don't elect those agencies like we do our president, right? And they're the ones running our country, and they happen to have a very deep working relationship in the church, at least in a networking capacity. Why are they out there? Why are they always recruiting young Mormon college students into their ranks? It's like, makes you wonder, and why does the church have this uncanny fascination with ancestry and DNA? It's like, I don't know, and it makes me think of other religions. It's not just the Mormon church. I'm not just singling the Mormon church out here. I think of the Vatican, and I think of all these other organized religions in Western culture, and it makes me wonder, what's really going on here? It's like the reason why I went inactive personally is because I decided to cut the middleman out, the ones running the Shopify platform, the middle guys who run most of the business, and say we're the ones that help you operate on a religious level. I compare the Mormon church to Shopify. Why run Shopify if you can go develop a WordPress blog yourself and cut the middleman out, right?
If it works better,
yeah. Some of the original Gnostic Christians, right? They taught that God was a relationship between you and God, and that was what Christianity was. You weren't supposed to have these middlemen, these bishops, these official churches writing, revising the Bible to fit their narrative. I'm going to say this, and it's controversial, but I think even when it comes to the LDS Church and its recent history with Joseph Smith, there's a revisionist. It's revising itself constantly and rewriting its own history to fit the narrative of the day. Does that make sense? Or to be politically correct for the day? And that's as far as I'm going to go down that, because I'm not trying to bag on the church here.
Not at all. But I agree with you.
I love the church. Listen, I love the church. I identify as Mormon. I'm still a member of the church, but I'm inactive, and I'm very comfortable not leaving the church and sitting on the fence. You know why? Because I have both sides pushed. I have the pro-Mormons, the proactive Mormons that want to drag me back into it, and then I have the non-Mormons that are saying it's like being drugged down and drowned in the depths of the ocean, I have no freedom. I've got these chains, and they're telling me to cut the chains. And you know what I tell people? I say for a learning experience, for an experiential learning experience, I think it's the harder, higher path is allowing that tug-of-war to constantly pull me both ways when I identify culturally as a Mormon, because I feel like I have a very unique perspective of that religion with these UFO experiences. I think me and Travis Walton in so many ways are on the same wavelength, because Travis had his experience where he was taken on board a craft, and he has an experience that he can never unravel. And all these witnesses that saw him get taken, or at least zapped, and then taken, right? And I would like to see skeptics continue to try and explain that evidence away that's involved with that case. It's like Travis is the real deal to me. And can I tell you guys something about Travis? We have enough time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we do.
Travis. Okay, so for those who don't know, Travis Walton is the UFO case that inspired the major motion picture Fire in the Sky. Now, Hollywood got his actual story wrong, but let's not go down that rabbit hole, because a lot of people know about that story. They can look it up. They can Google it, Travis Walton, the Travis Walton incident. What I know for a fact, and this is a personal testament to who Travis is and what his integrity is, okay? He is a man of integrity. He is a man that blows my mind. He came to our festival in 2016 free, on his own dime. He comes up there to support the cause. And as I got to know Travis over the next few years, meeting him at various conferences, we became really good friends, and I became good friends with his son, Luke. And this is going to be a testimony of both Luke and Travis, okay? In 2000, I believe it was the most recent one, the 2019 festival, which you were at, Ryan, I was scheduled to go help Ben Hansen, the guy who runs the TV show Fact or Fake. He's a good friend of mine. Ben Hansen invited me to go out to Contact in the Desert in California, and he asked me to come help him at his table, help him man his table, because he sells night vision and he does these sky watches at UFO conferences. And we had just wrapped up our Utah UFO Festival. I had gone out to Rachel, Nevada on the Area 51 caravan that our festival does every time we do a festival. And Travis wanted to ride with me in my vehicle. And Steve Pierce came along on that trip. Me and Steve are not bosom buddies right now, because I confronted Steve and we butted heads. Especially, it was bad blood out of the little alien between me and Steve. Let's just put it that way. But here, in Steve's defense, Steve and Travis, the way they argued with each other, the way he trolled the Travis on that journey out there, they're not bosom buddies. They never were bosom buddies. In fact, if the UFO incident, the Travis Walton incident, hadn't happened, those guys would have parted ways long ago. Okay? But because they are tied to an otherworldly, unknown mystery that affected both their lives, they still are drawn to each other's path because of that incident, okay? And I got to listen to that all the way out to Rachel and back. That was 6 hours of that bickering. They didn't have a camera crew. They didn't have a film crew documenting their accounts. It was just off the record, off the cuff, natural. And it blew my mind, the details that they were talking to each other about going out there and back. I got back to Cedar City, and by the time we got into Cedar City, my wheel bearing on my vehicle was going out. You know what that meant? It meant I wasn't going to be able to get into contact in the desert in California. But I was supposed to go out there and help Ben Hansen, and guess who else was going to be out there? Travis Walton and his son Luke. That was their next destination. That's where I was supposed to be going. I said, it looks like I won't be going because my wheel bearing's out. And you know what?
I remember seeing Travis on the side of the road holding your wheel bearing, man. I totally remember.
Yeah, I remember Travis, the look in Travis and Luke's eyes when they realized they didn't want, deep down you could tell they didn't want to help me on this because it's a lot of work. It's like, oh no, Nate's between a rock and a hard place, and he's not going to be able to get through it if we don't help him. And I wasn't asking him for help. But Travis stepped up to the plate. And they had the tools right there at the hotel. And it was amazing to watch Luke and Travis go to work in installing a new wheel bearing. They had to pack the bearings. And it was more difficult than they anticipated because it was this Japanese-made Suzuki, right? And so it was about a 3-hour job that next morning. And they were wanting to be on the road earlier that morning, right? So they had ended up fixing the car there in the parking lot, and we ended up going to lunch afterwards. And I had gone over the bank and got a couple $100 out of the bank. I was going to pay Travis for the work that they had put into the vehicle. It's like that's the least I could do to give him some gas money or something. And I really wanted to give him something, even though I didn't have a whole lot because I was in the hole because of the festival. This wasn't from the nonprofit either. This was just my personal funds. And we go over to Wendy's, and I was going to give him the money at Wendy's, and we're sitting there eating lunch, and I give the money to Travis, and he won't even take it. He put his hand up like this, and he stopped me. He's like, I don't want your money. I was like, but you guys just helped me install a wheel bearing on my vehicle. He says, you don't have to give me any money for that. I wanted to help you. I wanted to help the cause. And to me, that was just both of his sons. There was no chitter-chatting about what they should do. They were both like of the same fabric, and they both refused to take the money from me.
For sure. And that's the thing about Travis, just that an unconditional compassion, much like yourself. It's like I when I saw him standing on the side of I already knew kind of what was going down. And I remember pulling over and you were like, nah, man, these guys are already, I was like, oh my gosh. But I am so glad that, you said that story because he's a man of his word. His story is 100% true. There's no way around it. People that try to badmouth this story are just the type of people that try to badmouth anything. And I can't thank you enough, man. Wrapping up, gosh, it's been such an honor to talk to you and have you on for this much time. What's going on with Nathan, and where can people follow you?
Okay. Well, I'm on a different road since I've been down here in Phoenix. There's a lot of stories behind that, of course, but I have 2 Instagram feeds people can check content out on. I got a feed I'm growing rare tropicals and strange cacti out here in the Sonoran Desert in southern Arizona. You can find that feed at Nate, Arizona. It's my smaller one. I have a main photography feed that I follow on, that I keep on Instagram. I've been neglecting both feeds, but if we're being honest here, with most recent content, where I put thoughts and images, these are the best sources to find, more stuff. So my photography is talking_tree. So those are two different feeds on Instagram.
And awesome photography. Your photography is off the chain. I love the way you capture the Southwest is very unique. And definitely check out his cactus feed as well, because I'm always blown away at how many cactus you can get in one picture, man. I'm like, holy cow. There's so many cactus in some of those pictures. Right on, Nathan. Yeah. No, go on.
No, I said I have about 300 plants, but my goal down here is to find some land and have a botanical garden out in the Sonoran Desert. Maybe I could get a USDA grant to preserve a tract of Sonoran Desert somewhere. I'll figure something out. I'm on that path right now. So
we need to chat, because I was I almost just tried to save 20,000 20,000 acres of yuccas, and I had to jump through all the hoops like you're talking about, with all the harvesting hoops, to like transplant them and all that stuff to save them. Man, it's difficult. So mad props to what you're doing. And yeah, everybody check out those feeds. Nathan's the real deal. He's not gonna filter what he tells you.
No, and if people contact me on there through direct messaging, I'm not conceited or anything. I'll reply to people as I have time. People are curious, have certain questions.
That's true, man. Thanks so much, man. I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Okay, take care, Ryan.
Take care.
See you later.
There you got it, guys. Nathan, Arizona, Talking Tree. Go to his Instagram feeds and support the guy. Really cool cactus stuff going on, and his photography of the Southwest is impeccable. Not to mention his descriptions of the places he goes. He's kind of like a traveling, amazing UFO guy, and we share some interesting experiences, and I hope we get to share some more once this pandemic is over. Until next time, definitely check out heroparanormal.com. We are going to have a couple of things for sale on there. Spice Unique Bronzer, all organic, the only type of its type on the market, and in different shades. Those are like $30 a piece, but they're sick. And we are going to have Happiness Medical, which is just going to make the lives of people with special needs a bit better. Until next time, keep your eyes to the skies, feet on the ground, but don't forget to take a look around.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off.